Hey everybody, how's it going? Thursday morning? Um, I am going to get us caught up on a couple of different film reviews I haven't do my instant treatment on recently. A preview for A Star Is Born. It was actually a couple weeks ago. It was down in Franklin, which is south of Nashville. I actually tried to do a video for that, but I was having such bad reception that it just wasn't working out. So I thought I would wait till it was a little bit closer to the movie being released. I went to a preview down in Franklin. Bradley Cooper was actually there, along with a couple of Nashville folks who helped with the music in the film. And I was very surprised by the movie. We'll leave it at that for a moment. Last night, I went to go see the Venom film, and I was a little bit distracted, frankly, when I was leaving the movie, but I also was having trouble getting a good YouTube connection at that theater. So it's kind of one of those things, like if I'm having trouble, so if you guys have probably seen a few of these where suddenly there'll be a little glitch or there'll be some little spots where the video's kind of missing because I don't have the best connection. And so I thought, well, I'll just wait and I'll do the video today. Well, when I woke up this morning, one of the first things I saw via my YouTube feed, and then also I think, I went to Twitter and started looking around for some more. But it turns out that there is a bunch of Lady Gaga fans who are basically trolling the Venom film with bad reviews on Twitter, right? So Lady Gaga fans saying, went to see Venom last night. What a disappointment. Guess I'll have to see A Star Is Born this weekend. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I think there's some controversy that they're using bots and all this stuff. That doesn't seem likely. I mean, she's got a lot of dedicated fans, and the fact that a lot of these, I've heard some people, read about some people today who are defending, it and saying every time somebody doesn't like something, it doesn't mean it's a bot attack, which is true. But it is a situation where there are tons of these tweets evidently, and they all have the same, punctuation and everything. So they're obviously cut and pasted. I don't know if there's any evidence. Okay, I literally just lost my YouTube there for a second. So hopefully I'm gonna get through the rest of this without any troubles. But anyway, kind of a smart campaign for the Lady Gaga fans to attack Venom in hopes of besting it this weekend when both the films open. Here's the thing. I went into A Star Is Born prepared to hate it. I don't care for Bradley Cooper as a human, kinda. I don't really know him as a human, but he doesn't even seem like somebody I would like, let alone somebody who I find interesting in films as an actor. 100% don't care for Bradley Cooper in general. I'm also not a big Lady Gaga fan. I think she's a great singer, talented lady, but she's not really my thing. I like that Alejandro song. That was from a few years back. That was a good one. They used to play that at this sushi restaurant I went to all the time, and really, it was a very catchy song. So she's a talented woman, but I'm not a little monster, let's face it. So anyway, I went into A Star Is Born 1,000% prepared to not like it. I mean, I was screening a couple weeks ago with Bradley Cooper and other people who worked on the film, and I didn't even stick around for the stuff afterwards. I just, as soon as the movie was over, I bailed. But I have to admit, and I'm going to actually just put it in the form of an apology, because I was so 100% ready to hate this movie. I just knew it was going to be awful. Here's my apology. I'm really sorry, because it's anything but awful. It's actually quite good. And Bradley Cooper as a director, actually, I mean, if anything, if I wanted to call him out for something negative, I would say it's just that some of the stuff he did in the movie was so, God damn it, I can't believe I'm about to say the word visionary. in regards to Mr. Cooper's directing. But there's some stuff in this film that is so great that I only wish he had doubled down and just given us even more of it. Here's one of the seven cruxes that has to happen when you make a movie like A Star Is Born. You have to believe that the music is real. I have to believe that Bradley Cooper could actually be a massive, like, sort of like country rock star. It's kind of hard to tell what the hell genre this is. It's kind of, I don't know, southern rock kind of thing. It's hard to imagine it filling a stadium the way that it's doing in the film, but as long as they can pull it off in terms of the material and the performance, then you'll believe it. And frankly, that's basically what they do. You know, to me, there's going to be a big push. I think there's a song called Shallow. I think that's the title. There's going to be a big push, you know, to make, you know, and I'm sure the music will probably end up getting some kind of an Academy Award nomination, just because, of course, it will. And you know, how many songs are there in movies anyway? So it's kind of, you know, that category is sort of just waiting for something like this to pop on the radar of the Academy so it can get a music nomination. So I'm sure that it will, but that doesn't have anything to do with whether the music's good or not. I would say the music's good, and I would say more importantly, the music is it's good enough that you don't question it. You don't question that this is like real music. And to his credit, you don't question that Bradley Cooper, you know, could actually be you know, a singer-songwriter with a rock band touring the country. It really, it comes off 100%. There's no sort of cringy moments where you're like, okay, wait, I'm supposed to think he's a rock star. Okay, that doesn't happen. You do think he's a rock star. You know, you 100% buy into the illusion. All of the music that Gaga does in the film is the same way. You know, I can't remember a line from any song. You know, it's definitely not like one of these things where, you know, this is going to be one of those all-time great soundtracks or anything like that. I mean, it could be, but it would be stupid if it was. But it could be, you know. But it's one of those things where it does the most important thing, the crucial thing, which is it convinces you of this musical universe in which Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga could both exist as you know, recording stars. And of course, Lady Gaga, you know, she can pull off that part of the role, but can she act? Ladies and gentlemen, can she act? I am currently catching up on a series, the American Horror Story series. There's a couple of different ones. As you might know, every season they sort of change the setting, and a lot of the actors return from the previous season, but they all play different characters. Kind of an interesting idea, really. It's more of just sort of a fun, silly thing to watch during October. Just, you know, I get really into watching, you know, horror genre stuff during this time of the month. So we're watching the Hotel series, which was somewhere like third or fourth season, I think, for the American Horror Story universe or whatever. And the Hotel segment features Lady Gaga as a vampire, essentially. And she's okay, you know, she's okay in it. But there are, for me, lots of moments where, you know, where it's not that good. You know what I mean? She's having her challenges. You know, when the camera's close and she's supposed to be in character, it's not always there. But in this movie, perhaps partly because of the fact that she can essentially play a version of herself. You know, a young girl. If you don't know the story of A Star Is Born, a big dude star, in this case Bradley Cooper, who's kind of this weird country rock dude, just sort of happens into a bar in Manhattan and discovers Lady Gaga, and it's not quite as, but the ball starts to roll, and the next thing you know, she's like the young, you know, talented newcomer, and he's sort of the has-been. He's a real handful because he's got lots of problems with drugs and alcohol and stuff. and it's sort of the story of one star falling as another star rises, a star is born. So this movie's been made at least 3 times that I know of. There's an early version. Honestly, I don't even know. I think the early version could even be a silent film. I don't know how old it is, but there's an early story of this, early Hollywood film of this idea, the dream of being a star, and I think that I can't remember who's in that. But anyway, so there's that early version. There's a version that was made in the I'm going to say early 80s. I'm going to say it's the early 80s when it's Chris Christopherson in the role of the sort of like road weary, rock and roll addict guy, and Barbara Streisand plays the ingenue who is discovered and then becomes the new star. This version is essentially that same story again. I thought about trying to go back and rewatch some of the earlier versions of the film just to glean a bit about what they did differently. Honestly, I didn't do that, so I don't know how much this story differs from the other story. But in addition to getting the music right, A Star Is Born also has a pretty damn good performance from Lady Gaga. Probably people will gush about it and talk about what a genius she is, just because it works, it makes good news. Saying she did a good job isn't really that big of a headline, but she did a good job. I don't think it was any kind of real outrageous breakthrough performance, but I would say that we live in a universe now where Lady Gaga is not only a singer-songwriter, but she's also legitimately considered an actress. Which is great. Congratulations, Lady Gaga. And Bradley Cooper, actually, his acting in this is quite good, I have to admit. He does this thing with his voice all throughout it that's actually really impressive. And even the way that he moves his body, there's a lot going on with that character, even though it might not seem like it. And hats off, Mr. Cooper. Hats off to you. As far as his directing goes, what I was alluding to earlier is the film opens with a scene on the stage, and there's lots of live music scenes. And man, every time he does one of these live music scenes, he does a great job of really sort of capturing like the sort of energy and the chaos of a live performance, especially a live performance in that kind of milieu where you've got 100,000 people screaming their heads off. Really does a good job, to the point where I don't even know what I would suggest, but on some level, maybe just longer scenes like that. But on some level, it's like I just wanted him to push that even further, because he was really getting it. It's not just about like, oh, point the camera at the stage with the music. It's like he really puts the camera on the stage, right? That's one thing that he does that's smart. It's similar to what, techniques that Oliver Stone used in The Doors, where he's able to do the exact same thing. He's really able to find this energy. And when I'm comparing Bradley Cooper to Oliver Stone, I don't know what universe I'm living in. But really, honestly, I mean, it's one of the best versions of, sort of like live rock and roll movie that I've seen. It's really well done. It's very well done. And like I said, to the point where I wish we even had more of that, because cinematically speaking, that's some of the real juice here. There's also other things Cooper does that are quite interesting. Toward the end of the film, he's not afraid to let the camera. I like that. And toward the end of the film, there's a scene where some shit's gone down, and there could easily be like these really stock shots of like, and then the camera is up above the road as ambulance arrives, or the police show up, and it's almost like this. There's a photographer I wanna name who would take a photograph of a scene like this. I can't do that right now. But there's ways that all of a sudden the camera is like out in front of the garage, and the police pull right up to the thing, and we cut, and they're going through the door, or whatever. You know what I mean? There's really dumb, idiotic ways that you could sort of give that message away. But Cooper simply points the camera sort of into the woods outside of this house at night, and then the woods are just periodically bathed in red and blue light, and you understand that first responders have arrived on the scene, and that's it. You know what I mean? And it's nice, man. And I did see this movie a couple weeks ago, so I don't know how many examples I can give you. But I remember really appreciating. This is also a script writing thing. There's several people on the script, including Cooper. But it's a little bit of a script thing too. That he has a certain respect for the audience, man. That I really found. I was really grateful for, frankly. Again, I can't believe I'm saying these things about Brett, but I was really grateful for it. So there's all sorts of moments in the movie where Cooper is sort of, willing to just let the camera hang out for a minute. He doesn't feel the need to just crank it and crank it and crank it, and like he's chasing your interest at every second. He's sort of trusting you to want to be here. And in doing that, it makes you feel more welcome. So there's lots of scenes, again, it's hard to come examples, but there's lots of scenes where he lets the camera just hang out for a second. And there's also lots of scenes in the way they're written where it ends up being just two characters talking, really. And it's just sort of, there's not sort of a expositional sort of information happening. There's not necessarily some kind of plot changing discussion that's going on. It's just a chance for them to be together and to sort of enjoy the space with these characters, and it's sort of typical of actor directors, right? When actors become directors, most of the time you see their strength in how they deal with the performances of other actors, because that's their primary expertise. In this movie, it's very much the same way. He gives us a very actorly film. There's lots of cameos in the movie that are a lot of fun. Also, I'm going to go ahead and say it right now. Best Supporting Actor nom, Andrew Dice Clay. I'll leave it at that. Andrew Dice Clay, Best Supporting Actor. Oh! So there's my review for A Star Is Born, and I'm going to put it right together with my review for Venom, because there is this weird tension happening between the two films, so it seems like it's appropriate just to talk about them at the same time. Venom, of course, is the Marvel Universe, I guess he's a bad guy, but it's kind of weird because Venom's so strange. Venom is essentially a blob of black goo from a different planet. I don't know what the name of the planet is, frankly. But he came from outer space, and he is considered to be a symbiote, because what Venom does is he sort of like takes over. He's a body snatcher, essentially. He sort of takes over a host being, and then is sort of living inside of that person, who now heals incredibly fast, has lots of power and strength, and can also do all sorts of weird shit, because essentially they're not even a person anymore. So there's all sorts of superpowers that come. Oh, you're gonna mug that lady, I could just reach out with my black goo hand and grab you 100 feet away and throw you through a window, right? Venom. So that's essentially the Venom story, and this movie is basically like an origin story for Venom, and it's kind of a weird. It's kind of weird the way it ends, but anyway, one thing I thought was interesting about the movie was, now first of all, I don't really get how all this works, but somehow this is not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Okay, sort of the way that Spider-Man isn't, but then Spider-Man was also in the Avengers because the Sony let them borrow Spider-Man or something like this. So I think what's going on, my understanding of it is that Venom, who in the Marvel universe is associated with Spider-Man, that Venom must also be a property that Sony has. And so this movie is like in cooperation with Marvel, but don't look for Venom to cross over into the Avengers universe anytime soon. Which is good and bad. So basically, there's this guy, I'm not even remember his name, damn it, what is the character's name? There's this dude, okay, played by Tom Hardy, who is a journalist in San Francisco, an investigative journalist, the kind of guy who's like, on the side of the poor against the corporate, meanies and the, government corruption and all that kind of stuff. Crusading investigative journalist. Could have used even more of that. We basically montage of a TV segment that he does, and that's supposed to fill us in on who this character is, at least in his day job. It would have been nice to get a little bit more, to give me more examples of his actual personal values that inform why he's made a career out of, this sort of crusading journalism, when clearly, there's probably in terms of, making money and whatnot. So he is boyfriend, girlfriend with a lawyer who's played by Michelle Williams, who I normally find to be completely irresistible in literally everything I've ever seen her in. And they live together in San Francisco, which of course is, nowadays dominated by Silicon Valley, right? The bad guy in the movie is this sort of Elon Musk character who has basically built a fortune from pharmaceutical drugs and who is now making his own rockets, with the idea that, when it comes to creating, new drugs, there's any number of elements out there in space that we might use. And also the idea that, we need to get out there and start finding places for humans to go because of, inevitable climate collapse and whatnot. That's the basic setup of the movie. Again, my first criticism is that I feel like I could have gotten to know the journalist character played by Tom Hardy a little bit better. What the hell is his name? Brock? I don't know, something to be. Anyway, so that guy is, you don't really get to know him well enough. He's just sort of thrown at you now. Here's this guy. Oh, and here's the woman he's living with. And really, Michelle Williams, she sort of like comes into her own later in the movie, but man, for a while there, their chemistry is like zero. And I don't know what it is, but man, again, maybe it's just a script problem. But really, for the first time ever, Michelle Williams just sort of falls flat to me. I got to tell you, I really think she's a good actress, man, and she's good in everything I've seen. So I probably haven't seen everything she's done, but man, she's consistent as far as I'm concerned. And in this, it's just like, it just falls flat. So you start off the movie not so great. And then, basically what happens is, one of these rockets has made contact with these symbiotes, and they've brought back these samples to Earth. Okay? Well, of course, inevitably, the samples get loose, shit goes wrong, blah, 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 bing, bong, bong. And that's the story of Venom. At some point, our journalist friend is taken over by the creature. They one of the things that works in the movie is actually the way that, that the hosts interact with the symbiote, right? So there's lots of like, you'll hear a voiceover of the symbiote talking to Tom Hardy, and Tom Hardy will be answering it back. And of course, they play this for laughs quite a bit. And I would say mostly it works. Maybe it gets a little bit too jokey at times, which is, sort of one of those things the Marvel films do. It's always sort of like trying to balance that humor that sort of is their trademark with the fact that you're trying to use the humor to sort of make the ridiculous caped comic opera something that you'll buy easier, you know what I mean? And it's a good strategy, and mostly it works. But here, I think the problem isn't so much, I think the humor actually does work. But I think it can feel a little bit much because it's trying to balance out against this thing that isn't really quite getting up on its feet. This could have gotten this could have gotten deeper in some ways. It just feels really shallow. One thing I like about it is that the overall sort of tone of the movie, instead of feeling like a comic book movie, and I know that's sort of a generalization because there's a lot of room to talk about what a comic book movie might be, even just in the MCU, let alone in the DC movies and whatnot. But the tone of this is pretty consistently it's pretty consistently treated like a science fiction film. And it really is more like a science fiction film in the sense that it is about an alien invasion. It literally is like a body snatchers film. That's the whole idea, is that, nobody's really sure who anybody is. They could have used more of that paranoia, frankly. They could have used more of that, is this you or is this Venom, that would have been an interesting way to sort of crank it up a little bit. But it was neat that it did mostly play like a science fiction thriller, kind of like. Could have used a little bit more of the thrill part. Of course, there's a crazy action sequence involving a car chase in San Francisco. You got to do that. And there's the sort of big showdown at the end between two different hosts and symbiotes. I can't imagine that not getting. I mean, it's a mind-blowing. I mean, we say that a lot about the mind-blowing visual effects, but man, oh man, that fight sequence where you literally have these symbiotes and hosts sort of like ripping each other to pieces. And I'm doing this motion, which doesn't tell you anything, but basically there's moments where they're fighting, and they're basically fighting like sort of, as I remember it, they're all over this architecture when they're fighting. They're falling, they're climbing, it's all going on all over the place. And basically they're doing this kind of effect where right in the middle of this crazy chaos fighting, all of a sudden it'll slow down and the camera will move around it in like three-dimensional space, and you'll sort of see the symbiotes and the hosts will actually sort of separate from one another, and then back into the fighting again, and then here we go. And I mean, it's one of those effects that's done just to fucking just like blow out that effects budget and give you that big visual, treat. Which, that's not really the reason I'm going to movies. But when it's really well done, I mean, this gave me almost the same kind of thrill when I was a little kid and the first time you saw like American Werewolves in London and the monster transformation scene. I really am a big fan of like those kinds of makeup effects and stuff. That's like my favorite kind of movie effect. But when it comes to like visual effects and seeing, the kind of things they do with CGI nowadays, I mean, this is like one of those things where they're sort of like, look at this, and you're like, yeah, that's fucking awesome. So it gets some points there. Generally speaking, in the war of Lady Gaga versus Venom, I gotta tell you, Lady Gaga is like kicking its ass. So the little monsters are right. I would say a scale of 1 to 10, I would say A Star is Born is like an 8. It's like a solid B plus even. Okay, Bradley Cooper? I'm sorry, Bradley Cooper. Well done. A good movie. A solid B plus, and I'd say Venom is more like a C plus. It's just sort of flat. And I wish I could be more eloquent. But it's first thing in the morning. It's a beautiful day here. You can see the sunshine here in beautiful Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm about to go to the gym, and I'm going to wake up my brain and wake up my body. And then later on, I'm going to probably watch some more American Horror Story and enjoy thinking about Lady Gaga's transformation, not from a human to a vampire, but from a pop star to a legitimate Hollywood actress. And on that note, we'll tune back in for the next review. I've got some more on the calendar, so there'll be some stuff coming up. And I want to let you guys know I launched a Patreon campaign. So if you don't know what Patreon is, it's basically kind of a crowdfunding subscription where instead of me hounding you every time I want to do a new project and asking you to, hey, lend me some money so I can make a record or whatnot, I'm basically reaching out to people who watch these videos. I'm reaching out to people who read my blog, to people who enjoy my photography practice, for people who like to come to my shows and see my live music, or who like to just tune in and watch the streams that we always post on Facebook. If you're into anything that I'm doing, if you're into the music, if you're into the photography, if you're into the critical writing, if you're into the crazy instant YouTube movie reviews, I would ask that you support this practice, support this channel, by becoming part of my Patreon campaign. So if you go to patreon.com/mightyjoenolan, you'll find me there. I'm going to put a link below this when I get a chance to get home and edit it. So you'll find a link below for the Patreon. And basically you can go to Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month, you can become a patron, which is super important for me right now because I've just started my campaign. We have a goal of reaching 13 patrons, and so far we've got 7. So we're moving right along. This has only been going on for less than 2 weeks. So we've made great progress so far, and I want to keep up the momentum if we can. So just by becoming a patron, you're going to help me out a lot, regardless of what dollar amount you sign up for. And regardless of what dollar amount you sign up for, $1, $5, $10, $20, you will automatically be eligible to get various giveaways depending on what tier you're at. I've got 2 albums I'm re-releasing in the basically between now and Christmas shopping season. So those are going to be part of my giveaways. So depending on what level you sign up for, you'll be receiving one or both of those records. I've got some postcards I'm making of my Pikes project, street photography. So there'll be postcard sets that I'm going to be putting together soon, and postcards are part of my giveaways depending on what level you sign up at. So you can get an actual postcard of one of my street photographs, including a personalized message on the back. And I'm also giving away prints of my photos, like museum quality prints, signed and numbered by Joe Nolan. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, or if you just feel like, hey, I really like this guy's YouTube channel, I would like to see him make even more videos, then please check out patreon.com/mightyjoenolan. Thank you for watching. Have a lovely weekend. I probably won't be posting another video before next week at the earliest. So peace out, y'all. I'll talk to you soon.